Hello all, welcome to the next lecture, that is lecture number 4 of digital image processing. Okay, so in this lecture we shall be discussing about the different brightness level adaptation and its discrimination. Okay, so remember my dear friends, digital images are represented as discrete levels of intensities, right? Digital images are nothing but what they are mentioned over as a matrix, right? So in that matrix we are going to write or the brightness intensities or the intensities of that particular pixel will be represented as a discrete quantity, right? So it is very important to understand how our human eye is going to discriminate all these different intensities, so that whatever we are going to perform the digital image processing. Okay, so based on that, how the human eye is going to uh, accept or distinguish between the different intensity levels whenever we are going to present its result after performing a different digital image processing. So that is the main motto behind understanding this brightness adaptation and discrimination. So adaptation means what? How our human eye is going to adapt to the changes into that intensities, gray level intensities, or it may be the intensities related to the color, right? So how our human eye is going to perceive or uh, uh, perceive or respond to the changes into the brightness level or changes into the colors of your images that we are going to consider. Okay, okay, do you know that how our human visual system is going to respond to the different color intensities or range of the intensity? So remember that the range of the intensities that has been adapted or to which the human visual system is going to respond is very enormous, right? So a large amount of range is there, okay, over which our human eye is going to identify the changes into the intensities, and that is a range. The value is nothing but what? It is of the order of 10 raised to the 10 power. Okay, so that many number of variations into the intensity our human eye can identify. Okay, so remember that human visual system is going to identify the changes into the or adaptations into the variations into the intensities is enormous. It is in the order of 10 raised to 10 power, right? Okay, and this intensity is going to vary from a very dark level to the very bright level. So we can call this as let us say a scotopic range to the glare limit. Glare means a very bright intensity, or the intensity that we can consider whenever we are going to watch whenever we are going to see towards any LED bulb. Okay, so that is your glare limit. Is that fine? So our human eye cannot respond, or we are not going to we don't feel comfortable to watch towards a LED. Okay, so that is nothing but your glare limit. Okay, and scotopic means a very black image, let us say a very black background. Okay, so our human eyes are going to respond to that many number of intensities. Okay, that many number of variations into the intensities, ranging from the black, very black, to ranging to the very brightest color. Okay, so that is the range, and it is of the order of 10 raised to 10. It has been experimentally proven that whatever the light intensities are going to be perceived by the human visual system, or the intensities perceived by the human visual system, is a logarithmic function of light intensities which are going to fall or incident on human eye. So whatever the light intensities that are being perceived by the human eye, it is nothing but a logarithmic function, right? So remember that whatever we are going to see by means of our human eye, what are the changes into the intensity levels that we are going to check out with respect to our eye, it is a logarithmic function. Is that fine? So it is a logarithmic function based on the intensities that is perceived by our human visual system, right? So I hope you can find this is nothing but the second point, that is nothing but the subjective brightness. Subjective brightness is nothing but the brightness intensity which is perceived by our human eye, okay, our human visual system. HVS stands for human visual system, and it is nothing but a logarithmic function of light intensities which is incident on our human eye, right? Okay, so in this figure 2.5, here it is going to represent that the subjective, it is the graph of subjective brightness versus the light intensities over x-axis, right? So here you are going to identify the how the human eyes are going to respond to the light intensities which are incident on human eye. That is nothing but the subjective brightness, that is perceived brightness. Okay, so remember that photopic itself, it is ranging from, it will cover from uh, up, it will range up to the 10 raised to 6. Okay, so photopic means a color vision and scotopic means a gray level vision, right? I hope we have discussed that scotopic vision and photopic vision whenever we were discussing about our human eye, that is elements of visual perception, right? So in that case we have studied what is scotopic and what is photopic. What is scotopic? I hope you still remember that the scotopic is nothing but a gray level images or gray level informations or low level illumination informations, right? That is nothing but let us we have taken the example of moonlight images or scene of moonlight, any scenery or any field. Okay, so it is a view of moonlight scene. Okay, so that is nothing but a scotopic, in which a very less amount of color information is present, right? So only a black and white information is more in that case. That means brightness levels are different in that case of moonlight view, right? So that is nothing but your scotopic, or we can call this as a gray level intensities or gray level information. But the photopic is what? Photopic is nothing but simply a color information, right? So this color information is having a very large amount of range, that is nothing but 10 raised to 6. Okay, so whatever the color intensities that are there for the photopic vision is only having a range up to 10 raised to 6. So more information is available in case of color. Okay, so this solid line represents the actual characteristics of the subjective brightness which is perceived by our human eye. The total intensities that can be discriminated by eye, okay, the total light intensities that are discriminated by eye simultaneously at any given point is very small, is rather very a small amount as compared to with the very large amount of brightness adaptation. Okay, remember that at any given condition, I have any given set of conditions, whatever the brightness level that is perceived by a human eye is nothing but called as a brightness adaptation level of that eye for that particular set of conditions. Okay, also brightness level discrimination of a human eye perceived by a, okay, we also need to consider that in case of any brightness intensity changes during that adaptation level is our also area of interest. So we need to consider that how our human eye is going to identify whether there are any changes into the brightness levels or not into that particular range of brightness adaptation level. Okay, so that is also a area of interest. Okay, so this can be performed by means of one a very classical experiment that has been performed on different people, so that they can identify the whatever the changes into the brightness levels that has been taken or that has been done at the time of experiment. Okay, so let us see that what is that experiment actually. Okay, okay, so what we did or what they have done in this experiment, they have said the people or the subject who is looking to that particular view, they have been said to they have to watch that the glass is there. Okay, a glass is there opaque glass is there which is non-transparent, okay, and the glass has been illuminated from the backside of its view, okay, and from its back there is a bulb, okay, whose intensity can be varied by means of varying the current, okay, and that it is representing a the whatever the brightness or whatever the changes into the brightness, that will be represented as a circle on that glass, okay. So the illumination part is nothing but a circular type of illumination will be created on that glass by means of bulb, okay, and some arrangement. And this experiment was carried out in order to identify how the subject or people are going to uh, identify or discriminate the changes into the brightness levels at that particular point, okay. In this experiment, I is nothing but the intensity of illuminated light. So suppose in the very first case there is no illumination or there is no proper illumination which has been imposed on that particular screen, or let us say opaque glass. Then in that case what the user or the subject who is looking to that particular scene, they says there is no perceivable brightness which are available right now for that scene, okay. So he may say that right now there is no illumination, so we cannot have that kind of illumination, or we are not perceiving any kind of illumination at this point of time. So let us say that right now whatever the illumination is there, it is constant, it is not varied at all. So the user may say, or the subject may say that there is no perceivable brightness change, or there are no any changes into the brightness. Now what we are going to do, or what they did it, in that case they have changed the brightness intensity. So delta I is nothing but the changes into the brightness intensity. So they did the changes into the brightness intensity at a very faster rate. And yes, now the subject says that yes, there are some changes into the brightness level, and they will perceive that changes into the brightness level, okay. So this kind of experiment has been carried out, so based on the incremental brightness level. So let us say that in this experiment they have carried out they have simply increased they are go on increasing the brightness level intensity of that particular bulb. And then in that case the subject is saying that yes, right now the brightness levels are increasing, and again after some time they are going to say that yes, right now also it is increasing. So likewise they can identify the changes into the brightness level onto the incremental basis. So from that they have found out one ratio, that is nothing but a Weber ratio, that is nothing but it is nothing but delta C is nothing but the incremental change of the intensity level to the background level. So I is nothing but a background level, so delta C is not delta IC is nothing but the increment of illumination which can be discernible by 50% of the time. And I is nothing but the background illumination. Exact background illumination is, let us say, a constant illumination, and the ratio is nothing but incremental illumination to the background illumination is nothing but a Weber's ratio, okay. So the value so remember that smaller the value of this ratio is nothing but representing that, or we can say that whenever the so remember that if this Weber's ratio is small, then in that case we can identify a very fine changes into the brightness levels. So that means this is nothing but a good kind of discrimination level, okay. So a human can identify a good changes into the brightness levels, okay. But if this ratio is large, then in that case we can say that the poor discrimination is possible with that particular person or with that particular view, okay, or viewer. So remember that the Weber ratio, the smaller the Weber ratio, the larger or good quality of discrimination can be possible. If the higher is the Weber's ratio, then a smallest fine amount will not be identified. You can say that yeah, in case of a large value of Weber ratio, the poor discrimination is possible in that case, okay, fine. Okay, now let us discuss in the next point, that is nothing but it is a typical graph or plot of Weber's ratio versus log of illumination. Okay, so this is nothing but a Weber's ratio, right? This is a Weber's ratio. It is a typical plot of Weber's ratio as a function of logarithmic intensity. So from this graph or from this plot, we can say that for the lower levels of illumination or low levels of illumination, the Weber ratio is large, right? So right now this is a large Weber ratio. In that case, a poor discrimination is possible. Okay, so in this case, discrimination or the brightness changes are identified with a very less or with a poor quality. Okay, and as we are going to improve the illumination, so your Weber ratio is going to decrease, isn't it? So right now this Weber ratio is about 1. Okay, so plus 1 is the Weber ratio for the illumination of, let us say, minus 3. Okay, so in that case your Weber ratio is 1, and because of that a very small amount of discrimination can be possible. Okay, and that is nothing but your poor discrimination. But as we are increasing the intensity of illumination, okay, and in that case we can say that your Weber ratio is go on decreasing, right? So it is decreasing. So as we are increasing the background illumination, so it is possible that we can identify more brightness changes. Okay, so in that case this Weber ratio is small, and in that case what we can call, right now the Weber ratio is of the order of, let us say, in between minus 1.5 to minus 2. Okay, so right now it is going to give you a more detailed information about the changes into the brightness level. So that is the use of Weber ratio. So remember that if the Weber ratio is less, then it is good. Okay, so the discriminations or the possibilities of discrimination is high, and whenever the Weber's ratio is large, then in that case this is nothing but a poor kind of discrimination, or whatever the discrimination as compared or in regard to the brightness level, it is very small. So very small amount of changes into the brightness we cannot identify. Okay, so there must be a large amount of changes into the brightness, then and then only we can identify if the Weber's ratio is high. And if the Weber's ratio is low, even a very small or even a very fine amount of brightness change is going to occur, then we can identify that changes. Okay, or discriminate. We can simply discriminate a very high. So possibility of discrimination whenever the Weber's ratio is small is high. Okay, and whenever the Weber's ratio is high, then the discrimination possibility is very low. Okay, so Weber's ratio and discrimination possibilities are inversely proportional to each other. So remember this thing. So by a simple relation we can remember that the Weber's ratio, if the Weber's ratio is low, then great amount of discrimination or high amount of discrimination is possible. If the Weber's ratio is high, then in that case a very small amount of discrimination into the brightness we can identify. Is that fine? So it is having an inverse relation with the Weber's ratio and discrimination. Is that fine? Okay. So in this slide we have discussed. So in this slide we have discussed the same. So small values of Weber ratio means good brightness level discrimination, and vice versa, as we talked about. At the low levels of illumination, brightness discrimination is poor. Yes, obviously, if the illumination, so let us say, in case of your moonlight view, you cannot identify changes into the brightness levels. But in case of your daylight, then you can easily identify. Yes. So let us say, in case of at the time of rainy season, you can easily identify changes into the brightness level which are occurring into the environment, or rather you are seeing or you are watching the view from your window. Okay, the view of any thing, that is, let us say, in nature from your window, and let us say that the clouds are there, and whether when the clouds are going to come in front of the sun, then definitely you can easily identify, yes, right now the changes are going to occur whenever the clouds are coming in between the sun and your earth. Okay, so in that case the brightness level are going to go on decreasing. Okay, so heavy clouds, if they are in front of the sun, then a very less amount of light is going to fall onto the earth, and because of that a very less amount of brightness is going to appear on that scene. and whenever the clouds are getting away from in front of that sun, so if they are going away from that view, then definitely the again brightness levels are going to increase, because the more number of sun rays are going to fall onto that particular scene. So likewise you can easily identify whenever there is a daylight is there. Is that fine? But in case of moonlight, there is a problem. Though it is having a good quality of illumination or good quality of rays from the let us say from the moon are coming onto the earth, but still all the background is about poorly illuminated, isn't it? So because of that we cannot get the proper details or proper changes into the brightness. Okay, as compared to the daylight, we are not going to get the good quality of changes into the brightness at the time of moonlight. Is that fine? So likewise we can say that there is a problem of low level illumination. So if the low level illuminations are there, then the brightness level discrimination is very poor, right? And it improves significantly as the background is illuminated with the proper light, that is increases. If the background illumination increases, it increases your discrimination level, right? So because of the cones we can identify large number of changes into the brightness level or changes into the color levels, color brightnesses. Is that fine? Okay, so the typical observer can discern 1 to 2 dozen different intensity changes. Okay, so let us say any observer is there, so it can discern, that means it can differentiate, let us say 1 to 2 dozen, that means 12 to 24 different intensity level changes at a time. So that is the number of different intensities a person can see at any one point in a monochrome image. So let us say we have a monochrome image, that means a gray level image we have. In olden days there were black and white TVs, right? So in that case gray level image processing and all these things were there. So in that case, if we are going to talk about the changes into the brightness level, so a person which is looking to that TV or watching that TV, he can identify up to 1 or 2 dozens of changes into the brightness level. That is the meaning of that particular sentence. Is that fine? Okay. Okay, the two phenomena proves that the perceived information is not a function of simply a intensity or changes into the intensity. So let us have a look of this. See, in this case, whenever we are going to watch or whenever we are going to see this image, it is simply a changes into the brightness level, right? But at the changes, whenever we are going to check out the changes at the edges or the boundaries of that particular, let us say this is a, right now a black strip, and there is a slight changes to into the gray level intensity. So black has been changed to some gray level information, and at this edge we see that it's a undershoot, that a sudden changes into the brightness level is been observed. Okay, so this is nothing but, let us say call this is nothing but a undershoot and overshoot. So whenever we are watching from black to the gray level, then it is called as a overshoot. And whenever it is, whenever we are coming back towards the black, okay, so whenever we are watching this second strip first, and whenever we are going back to the black strip, then it says that a very dark level of information is present. That means it is nothing but an undershoot. Okay, so these are the two phenomena. It depicts that it is not simply a the discrimination level is not simply dependent on the intensity level, but it depends upon a observer also. Okay, so whatever the information that we are going to perceive or the perceived information is different than the actual information. So actual information is nothing but, this is nothing but gradually increasing the brightness level intensities, right? But whenever we are going to check or whenever we are going to perceive this information or changes into the brightness level, then we may feel that there is exactly the sudden changes into the gray level intensity from the, let us say, black to gray to black. So in that case we used to feel that there is a very large amount of black information is available, so that is called as a undershoot. And whenever we are watching first a black strip and then we are going for the next gray level strip, then in that case we see that there is a large amount of information in a brighter manner. Okay, So over here we used to see or we used to observe that overshoot of brightness. Again, whenever we are going to check out for the second strip and third strip, in that case also we used to observe the undershoot and overshoot whenever we are going for from third strip to the second strip and from the second strip to the third strip respectively. Is that fine? And in a similar manner also, whenever we are going to check out, let us say we have a last strip, let us say it is a brightest strip as compared to all other strips. So in this case also, whenever we are going to whenever we are consider its adjacent strip, in that case also we used to say that it is darker as compared to this one. Okay, so undershoot and overshoot are going to present in this case as well. Okay, and the second phenomenon is nothing but the simultaneous changes or the continuous changes into the brightness level. So okay, now the second phenomenon is nothing but the simultaneous contrast. In this case, you just observe that there are three different images. Okay, in these three different images only we have changed the background. Okay, the foreground is not we haven't changed any kind of foreground. That means let us say the inner square, that is nothing but the inner square which is of gray level, some gray level, that we didn't change. Okay, we did not change this background or this square box which is inside. Okay, having some gray level. Okay, only we have changed the background. Okay, let us say that black background we have changed to some gray level which is lighter than the black. Okay, and in that case we feel that the whatever the box is there, it is becoming quite darker or it is becoming quite darker whenever we are changing the dark background to the lighter background. Okay, and in the third case also we have changed the again this brightness intensity or this outer box brightness intensity darker, we have changed it to the brighter. Okay, and because of that we used to see that or we are feeling that it is nothing but becoming more dark. So remember that the backgrounds we have changed, we haven't changed the foreground. Let us say foreground is nothing but your this square box having some brightness or gray level information. Okay, so this is having some gray level. Okay, and right now first image is having a black background. Okay, in that case we feel that this is nothing but the brightest as compared to the black one. And as we are moving towards and we have changed the background from dark black to some light gray. Okay, lighter than the black, then in that case we felt that this background or this the foreground is going to become more darker as compared to this one previous one. And again if we are changing that to the more brightest color, the background we have changed from darker to the brighter again. In that case we haven't changed again the foreground, that is this middle box. In that case we have felt that this middle square is now becoming more darker as compared to the background. Is that fine? So remember that brightness levels are not at all dependent only on the intensity level, but it depends upon the simultaneous contrast and two phenomena, the simultaneous contrast and the continuous changes into the brightness level. Okay, so it is dependent on two phenomena. Okay, another problem with the persistence of eye is nothing but related to the illusion. Okay, so in this figure, you might be feeling that the first, let us talk about the first figure. So in this first figure, you may feel that yes, there is a square box present inside that four circles. So four, but some of you may feel that the four circles are there, and from each of the circle, the quarter part has been removed. So many of you may feel that like this, and many other thing that the circles are overlapped with the or the square has been overlapped on that circle, so that that portion of that circle, those four circles have been deleted or they are simply not visible to us. Okay, so foreground is let us say white and background is let us say four dark circles. Okay, so whenever we are going to impose a foreground, let us say a brighter box, brighter square on these four circles, then we may feel that the quarters of each of the circle have been imposed by that particular square which is brighter in the shade. And some of you may say that the foreground nothing but the kind of illusion that our human eye is going to perceive by means of different shapes. Is that fine? Okay. Okay, now we know that the light is consisting of different colors. Okay, so whenever we are going to check out of white light, and whenever we are passing that white light through the prism, then we will be getting a big beer, right? Yes. So rainbow colors we are going to check out, or when we will be getting the rainbow colors whenever we are going to pass the white light through the prism. Okay, so this is nothing but the color information that is present into the white light. Okay, so the all the colors nothing but violet, blue, green, yellow, orange, red blends smoothly into the next, right? So they are going to come out of prism, and we will be having a different colors available uh, out of the prism, right? Okay, so along with that ultraviolet rays and infrareds are also present, isn't it? Okay. Okay, now let us discuss image sensing and acquisition. Now we have talked about different things, or the how our human eye is going to view the scene, okay, and how the brightness level discrimination and all these things that we have discussed right now. Okay, so now let us go to the next point, that is nothing but the image sensing and acquisition. How the image will be sensed by means of electronic media, okay, or how to sense the image by means of electronics, and how to acquire that image. Okay, so right now we are going to discuss how the camera works. Okay, fine. So let us talk about the first point, that is nothing but image sensing. Is that fine? Okay, so there are three principal sensor arrangements are required. Okay, or we can have the three principal sensor arrangements. So let us discuss first how we can sense the image. Okay, so in order to sense the image, there are three different types of, or three different principal types of sensor arrangements are available. Okay, so these sensors are nothing but going to produce an electrical output which is proportional to the intensity level which has been absorbed, or which are right now present into the environment or the scene which we want to make its image. Okay, so the first type is nothing but a single imaging sensor. Okay, so there are three types of sensor, let us say. So first is single image sensor, then the second one is nothing but the line of image sensors. Okay, and then array of image sensor. Okay, so let us say that a single image sensor is nothing but a sensor which is going to accept the light intensity, a single sensor. Okay, so a single sensor is nothing but a sensor which is going to accept the light intensity and is going to convert it into a voltage, or that is electrical form. Okay, so this is nothing but a single transducer. But whenever we are going to talk about a line sensor, that means I hope you have seen the scanners. Okay, so you might have seen the electronic scanners, right? Image scanners which are available as a hardware. Okay, not which is present into our mobile phone. Okay, so a hardware scan, that is the scanner which is connected to the PC, okay, or laptop, is nothing but let us say we are having a HP scanner. Okay, HP scanner plus image copier. Okay, so the 3-in-1 printer, scanner and xeroxer, it is there in a single machine, right? So that kind of scanner which has been connected to the PC. Okay, so that kind of scanner is uses line type of sensor. Okay, so the sensor which are there in the scanner is nothing but a line. Okay, so the line strip is there, and it is going to scan your particular document. If you are going to place your document on the top of that your scanner, then you need to close that lid of scanner, and the light is going to pass. Along with that light, there is one sensor array. Okay, so that sensor array is nothing but a line sensor array is there. Okay, and that line sensors are going to scan your lines line by line, or sequentially. Okay, and likewise your document is going to be get scanned. So whatever the hard copy of your image is there, that document is there, that will be converted in the form of digital. Okay, and array sensors are nothing but what, the cameras which we are using, it is nothing but it is an array of particular sensors. Okay, so remember that our cameras, let us say we are having a 12 megapixel cameras. That means 12 mega such sensors are been there which have been embedded and which will work as a single sensor module. Okay, so remember that there are multiple sensors or sensor arrays are been arranged so that they can scan your image or sense your image. Okay, so that's why whenever we are going for higher range of cameras, our mobile phones cost is going to increase as its megapixel size is going to increase. Okay, so whenever we are demanding for the higher range of megapixels, in that case your camera sensor arrays are more as compared to your other camera phones. Okay, so let us say right now there is a 108 megapixel camera mobile phone is available, right? So in that 108 mega such sensor arrays, so right now we are going to see how the single image sensor is going to work. Okay, such 108 10 raised to 6 sensors will be there for that particular single camera. So remember that this is the fundamental related to the array. Array means you know that. Okay, so array is two-dimensional array. So likewise your camera will be camera sensor will be having 108 into 10 raised to 6 sensors into it, and based on that it is going to scan your images. So that many number of sensors are there, and because of that that many number of dots or that many number of pixel information will be recorded by means of that camera. Are you getting it? So for that purpose we need a camera array or array of sensors. Okay, so let us understand how these sensors are going to work. So let us first understand how the single imaging sensor will work. Is that fine? So definitely the light intensity or the photon energy is going to incident on that particular transducer. So definitely here as the photon energy or the light energy is there, so definitely the photo sensors are being used in case of sensing those light intensities. Okay, so over here the sensing material is nothing but made up of again a light sensitive material which can sense the light or changes into the light. Okay, and definitely we need to apply the power or we need to apply the supply, so that this, as this is nothing but a semiconductor device, so definitely we need to apply the some voltage so that it will work it, and it will convert that whatever the physical quantity is there, that will be converted into the electrical form, right? Again we need to have some housing for that. Okay, so the photodiode is there. Okay, so let us say a photodiode is always receives light energy and it is going to convert it in the form of electrical voltage, right? So we are going to convert that light energy in the form of electrical energy, right? Okay, so for that we have a housing, right? A transparent housing. Definitely a transparent housing must be there, because we need to sense the light intensity, isn't it? So if you don't have the transparent material, then the light intensity cannot enter into the and enter into its capsule, or let us say housing, and it cannot reach up to the sensing material, and then the sensing material cannot convert that light intensity into the voltage, right? So we must have a transparent, let us say a filter is there. Again different types of filter, let us say RGB filters are there. So based on the prism phenomenon, again we are going to use filters which can accept let us say red energy, sorry, the red color, red wavelengths, blue wavelengths, depending on the colors. Okay, so we may use filters or may not be using. Okay, fine. So energy is going to enter into this, and as the light intensity is going to fall on this sensing material, so definitely you know how the what is the fundamental principle of whenever the energy is going to fall on the photodiode or photosensitive material, then the electrons from the valence bond will get some energy and they will appear into the conduction band, and because of that the conduction is going to occur, and all these things that you might have already studied in the, I think, very first in the first year, or itself in the second year in case of your measurements and instrumentation, right? So you might have gone for the measurements and instrumentation. In that subject you might have studied how the photodiodes or phototransistors works, or LDR and all these things. Different photosensing components are there which can sense the photon energy and which can convert those into the electrical form, right? Okay, so likewise your photon energy will be converted, right? It is going to get accepted and it is going to convert it into the form, voltage form. Okay, fine, great. Okay, so as we discussed, so let us discuss again. Most common sensor of this type is called as a photodiode, as I said it, which is constructed of silicon materials, right? And whose output voltage waveform is proportional to the light intensity. Yes, definitely, whatever the light intensity is fallen on that particular sensor, photodiode, it is going to convert that in the proportional to the light intensity which is falling on it. Okay, so the use of a filter in front of sensor improves selectivity. So selectivity in the sense of color or in the sense of wavelength. So remember that the filter is nothing but the selectivity, or the it improves the selectivity of a color or wavelength of that particular color. Is that fine? Okay, for example, a green pass filter. So only the green intensity or green light we want. In that case, we can go for the green color. Okay, so green filter can be used. Is that fine? Okay, so in front of light sensor, and then definitely only the green related wavelengths will be passed through that filter, and it can be fallen on that particular let us say photodiode, and it is going to convert that voltage, that energy in the form of voltage. That's it. Okay, so the sensor output will be stronger for green light than the any other component which is present in the visible spectrum. Okay, so more intensities related to the, or the more wavelengths related to that particular color will be transferred more efficiently, and rest of all other colors wavelengths will be transferred with the let us say attenuation, right? So you will be getting a more stronger output waveform voltage related to the green color. Is that fine? So likewise, in case of your red, in case of your blue, or any combination of RGB, you can use any kind of such kind of filters, and then you can get particular color. Is that fine? Okay, so likewise we can go for single image acquisition sensor, image acquisition using a single sensor. Is that fine? Okay. Okay, so let us see the example. Okay, so let us see the examples. So this is nothing but a line sensors, and this is the array sensor. Okay, so this is nothing but your line sensor, and this one is the array of sensors. Okay, so it may be of the order of, let us say, 4 by 4, 8 by 8, 16 by 16, right? Or it may be having some kind of resolution, let us say 3000 by 4000. So such kind of 3000 rows, right? 3000 rows and 4000 columns. So likewise, definitely the number of rows will be less and number of columns will be more, because we used to usually prefer for the landscape type of images, right? We don't have square type of images, isn't it? So that we can have aspect ratio. So rectangular shaped wave, the images are more better to visualize, isn't it? So they are comfortable to visualize. So that's why we usually used to take less number of rows and more number of columns, so that more information is present in a horizontal manner. Okay, so our human eye is receiving more information in a horizontal manner. Okay, so it can scan very fastly. Our human eyes can scan information very fastly in a horizontal manner, but we need to we need to provide a more focus, or we need to give more focus whenever we are talking about whenever we are scanning the vertical images. Okay, whenever we are scanning images in a vertical manner. So remember that more information we used to present in a landscape mode, or more information present in the column or a horizontal mode. Okay, so you might have seen that in all the theaters have a screen as a rectangle, right? We don't have any kind of screen, or we haven't seen any kind of screen which have a exact square type of shape, because of this reason. Okay, so that is the reason behind it. So we can scan more easily in a horizontal manner. Okay, our human eyes are very specific to scan in a horizontal manner. They can scan with ease. Okay, there is no problem. So with the comfortable mode, they can scan the horizontal information as compared to the vertical information. So we need to maintain the aspect ratio, right? Okay, fine. So this is nothing but the line of sensors, and this is the array type of sensor. Is that fine? Okay, so let us understand how we can generate the two-dimensional image by means of a single sensor. So we have discussed about the single sensor, how it is going to convert and all these things that we discussed so far. Okay, now how we are going to generate a two-dimensional image by means of that single sensor. Okay, so in that case, whenever we want to have a image that is a let us say two-dimensional image, then we need to traverse this single sensor in horizontal manner as well as in a vertical manner, right? So we need to scan it. Okay, so first we'll scan the line, then we are going to rotate that screen, and then we can, so that means we have to have some mechanism which can traverse in x direction as well as traverse in a y direction. Okay, so by means of this we can obtain the two-dimensional image from that particular single sensor. So this is nothing but the example of your that particular kind of mechanism which can scan your image by means of a single sensor. So this is nothing but your linear displacement, right? And this is your angular displacement. Is that fine? So we are going to move our sensor from this end. Let us say this is the start of your first line and this is the end of your first line. Okay, and if I want to go for the scanning of this line, then I can move my sensor from this point to this point, and then after this I can go for rotation of this angular motion. So whenever I am going to rotate it by once, then it says that I have sensed my, or I have scanned my total one line. Okay, and I am going to scan now second line. So likewise it is go on incrementing its angular motion whenever it is going to complete this traversing in a linear motion. Okay, so two motions are associated over here. One is a linear motion and another one is a angular motion, or we can call this as a rotation, right? So one image line we are going to take out per incremental of rotation and full linear displacement of sensor from left to right. So our sensor is going to scan one line, and once it is going to scan one line, this angular motion will be incremented by 1. Okay, so in order to generate a two-dimensional image, we are going to use a single sensor in that case. So there have to have a relative displacement in both x and y direction in between the sensor and the area to be imaged. Okay, so an arrangement used in a high precision scanning where a film negative is mounted onto a drum. Okay, so this is the drum and on which the negative film has been mounted, right? And this mechanical rotation provides displacement in one dimensional, and the sensor is mounted on the lead screw that provides a motion in a perpendicular direction. So it is going to move in a linear manner in this way. Okay, so as I discussed it. Okay, so this is the way that we can obtain the image by using, or obtain the image two-dimensional image by using a single image sensor. Is that fine? Okay, so in this lecture we'll see up to this, and then we'll continue in the next lecture. Is that fine? Okay, fine.